So what is the definition of mythology? Well, according to the dictionary, it is a collection of myths, especially one belonging to a particular religious or cultural group. So with that said, even though I'm Christian myself, I will be counting Christianity as well as every other religion as myths for the sake of being true to mythology. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, what is the purpose of this video? Well, it is to compare similarities and myths in the world to that of video games. I feel like talking about God of War would be like reaching for the low-hanging fruit, but I'll start off with that regardless. How does God of War have ties to mythology, you probably aren't wondering? Well, it's in the name for one. You are Kratos, the man who kills the first God of War, becomes the new God of War, and then gets kicked out of godhood by Zeus. There's a bit more to it than that. You see, in these games, you fight through not only the gods of Olympus in ancient Greece, you end up fighting things like Medusa, the mythological Greek serpent, or serpentess, I guess. There's also Cyclops, Harpies, Cerberus, Hydras, Minotaurs, and you even get to kill the Titan Cronus at one point. So it's kinda easy to see how God of War is influenced by myth, as it is literally based off Greek mythology. But the thing is, when most people think about mythology, they think of things like dragons, or zombies, or unicorns. But if we look back at the definition of mythology, which is based around studying mythological beasts as well as the study of religious beliefs, we see that there's more to it than just mythological beasts. So, let's talk about religion in video games, and what better place to start than with Crusader Kings 2. Crusader Kings 2 is a game about, as the name would suggest, the Crusades. You are tasked with leading a nation of medieval Europe through the era of the Crusades. The Crusades being the era in medieval history where the Pope sounded the call to arms against the quote-unquote Muslim infidels to drive them out of the Holy Land. But seeing as mythology treat religion as myth, we don't need to focus on details of any of the games. I'm just talking about the presence of religion within them. Obviously, you can lead a Catholic nation through this era and try and conquer the Holy Land from the Muslim sultanates, or you could play the Muslims and try to hold the Holy Land and drive the Crusader filth from Muslim shores. Where's my place? You can also choose to enforce your nation's religion on the conquered people of rival kingdoms or sultanates and commit religious genocide of the people you have conquered. By that I mean wipe their own beliefs out and replace it with yours. You can build churches or mosques respectively and use Catholic priests or Muslim imams to teach the people to convert. But wait, there's more. In Europa Universalis 4, which follows the Crusade era, you can still conquer other kingdoms and enforce your religious beliefs on said conquered people, but in this game... One second, I lost my place. But this game is more than just over the Holy Land, but you sure can still conquer it if you wish. You can, among conquering and converting Catholics and Muslims, play as the following religious cultural groups and conquer and convert the rest. This is a long list, so get ready. You can expand the influence of the Christian denominations, which include Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, Coptic, and Anglican denominations. How did I get that word wrong? Then there's the Muslim denominations of Sunni, Shia, and Ibadi. I think I said that right. Then there are the Eastern religious denominations, which include Theravada, Vajrayana, Mahayana, Confucian, I thought he was a philosopher, and Shinto beliefs of the Asian people. Next, there's the Dharmic denominations, which include Hindu and Sikh, spelled S-I-K-H. Then the various pagan beliefs, which include animist, fetishist, totemists, Inti, Nahuatl, Mayan, Tengri, and Norse beliefs. Next is the Jewish religion, and finally the Zoroastrians. Every single one of these religions on screen now can be controlled by the player and expanded by conquering other kingdoms and converting the populace to your nation's religious system. I apologize if I got some of those wrong. Now I know what you're thinking, that's all well and good, but what about religions from way before the time of the Crusades in the medieval era in general? Or how about we switch to Imperator Rome? Welcome to the world of Imperator Rome, where Alexander the Great's empire has just fallen. Rome is still a city-state struggling for survival against the Etruscan League, and the only real powerhouses of the era are the Carthaginian Empire and Alexander the Great's successor kingdoms Macedon, Phrygia, the Seleucid Empire, and Ptolemaic Egypt. I've included screenshots from the game of the Roman and Greek religion screen. You will most likely have noticed that even though both nations are Hellenic, as you can see, it's up near the top of the screen. Where's my place? Even though both nations are of Hellenic faith, both nations call the Hellenic gods by different names. For example, Mars versus Ares, or Athena versus Minerva. I don't remember that one. Or Jupiter versus Zeus. How this game's religious mechanics work is that each religion has 6 deities to choose from. You pick one of the 6 that offers a boon you want or need for your nation and or people, whereupon your religion's head priests perform a ritual off-screen and only described in text boxes, usually, and you get the blessing of the god or goddess you choose. There are other pantheons in the game, which I will cycle through now. So you can see we have the Canaanite, Megalithic, Arabic, Hindu. I did a project on Shiva, he's up there if you can see him. Bon, I didn't know that was a religion. Ritualistic, Heptadic, Armazic, Zoroastrian, Zalmoxian. That sounds as pretentious as Scientology, honestly. Iberic, Druidic, and Tuistic. Now that I'm done with these slides, though, let me propose something to you. We've seen in this video a bit about mythological monsters and gods, we have talked about religion and games, and we've definitely seen how religion is affecting games. But what about talking about stuff that is as far removed from reality as possible? What about taking a look at the completely made up and pointing out similarities to real life religion? What if I told you I know a place we can go to do exactly that? What if I jumped us to the universe that is Warhammer 40k? Heck of a jump as it is to go from ancient Rome to a fictitious universe in the 41st millennium in space, no less. But how will I possibly tie anything here to the real world? To start off, let's talk about the Space Marines. I can already smell the burgers I'm flipping for a living. What are the Space Marines exactly? Space Marines are the elite of the Imperium of Man's military who serve the Emperor, who is dead, and spread the light of the Holy Emperor to the galaxy. Space Marines are always less wearing and more vaguely located inside massive suits of armor, and fight what are termed crusades against the enemies of the Holy Imperium of Man. So, massive amounts of armor, check. Elite military force that defends the faith, check. Crazy man who considers himself to be God, definitely not related to the Pope, check. Now let's completely switch gears and talk about the Knights Templar. The Knights... I lost my place again. I'm doing well. Who are the Knights Templar? The Knights Templar, aside from being the place my family name originates, were holy warriors who defended Christianity from the so-called Muslim infidels. The Knights were equipped with heavy plate armor, unsurprisingly, as they were knights after all. The Knights were also involved with the Crusades, in the form of both defending European travelers in the Holy Land as well as taking the fight to the Muslim infidels during the Crusades. I don't know if they were in the first one, though. I think they were formed after the First Crusade. Knights Templar were considered the elite force, or were considered an elite force, and one of the best knightly orders in medieval Europe. So both groups, Space Marines and Knights Templar, are considered elite militarized forces. Both fought crusades, and both are usually pictured wearing massive amounts of armor to protect said elite soldier of faith. The Knights Templar were definitely not mythical in any way, shape, or form, but they did defend the Catholic faith in its brand of myth. Similarly, the Space Marines defended their own myth that their long-dead emperor is a god and were regarded as defenders of the Holy Emperor. But what about the rest of the 40k universe? Well, let's move on to the Tau. I lost my place again. This is why I should really set up some sort of slideshow to do this for me. What's so special about the Tau? Well, for one, they're similar in their culture to the Indian Hindu religion. The Tau are organized into a caste society, just like Hinduism. Also, similar to the Hindu caste system, which is organized into 5 tiers, the Tau caste system is organized into 5 tiers as well. In Hinduism, the top tier is Brahmins, or priests. The next one down is Kshatriyas. I butchered that. I butchered that like a butcher in a meat market. Or warriors. And then the next tier down is the Vaishyas, or farmers, and the sort. Then it's the Shudras, or laborers, and finally the Dalits, that sounds close to Daleks, or outcasts at the bottom. The Tau caste system is organized similarly, with the ethereal caste being the rulers and holy leaders and general teachers of the Tau culture at the top. Then it's the air caste, which is responsible for operating the various spacefaring vessels within the Tau Empire, whose navy is comprised of everything from small trade vessels crewed by less than a dozen souls to huge Tau battleships of the military crewed by thousands. Next is the water caste, which is responsible for governing and administering Tau society and negotiating with foreign powers. Then in the 4th tier is the earth caste. Yes, that's English. Caste, which is which is responsible for all the labor in the Empire. And finally, at the bottom, oddly enough, is the fire caste, which is entirely comprised of the Empire's warriors, as odd as it is for the fighting caste to be at the bottom of the caste system. This is not the only link that could be made between the Tau and Hinduism, as the Tau are usually depicted as blue. How does that link it to Hinduism? Well, it doesn't, but a number of Hindu gods and goddesses are depicted as blue, and just a reminder, I'm not saying these fictitious groups in 40k are inspired by real-world religion. I'm simply drawing similarities between aspects of 40k and real-world religions. Similarities like war gods, for example. Cain, who is the... Yeah, I got the right one on screen. Cain, who is the god of war for the Eldar. Just picture elves, but in space, and that's the Eldar. And Khorne, who is the demonic god of war from the Warp, which is basically hell, but in space, because space makes everything better. Basically, every pagan religion had a war god, and Warhammer has a few war deities of its own. But how about I wrap up this presentation by talking about the Necrons, not taking about the Necrons, so I don't even know how that would work. Who are the Necrons? The Necrons are a race that are very interesting, to me at least, but before I get into them, let me talk about Arachne. Arachne was once a mortal man who possessed tremendous amounts of skills at weaving and began to believe himself just as skilled as, if not more so, skilled than the gods. So Arachne challenged Athena, goddess of wisdom, and in response to this brazen challenge, Athena became so enraged that she turned the arrogant mortal man into a spider to weave for all eternity. Let's also remember trickster gods, like Anansi, the spider who tricked a python, a tiger, and a swarm of bees in order to get what he wanted from the sun god, or was that sky god? Either way, now let's talk about the Necrons. The Necrons were a group of once-living beings who challenged the Old Ones, who were a race of godlike beings, all of themselves, for control of the galaxy. The Necrons realized too late victory was not possible, until, that is, the being whom the Necrons called the Khitan, or star gods, named so because they fed off the energy of stars, offered the Necrons the power of immortality and immense strength to go along with it. Naturally, the Necrons jumped at his offer. This offer is what it's supposed to say. I misspelled it. The Khitan instructed the Necrons to build metal bodies for themselves, and the Khitan would reward them accordingly. When complete, the Khitan began taking the souls of the Necrons and transferring a few into the metal shells, but also devouring the souls of a large portion of the Necron population. The Khitan forced the Necron into servitude, at least until the Necrons grew powerful enough to overthrow and kill their gods, but that's another story. This is a good example of a trickster. Trickster into thinking I was smart at this freaking rate. This is a good example of a trickster deity, as the deity tricked the Necrons into obeying it, and in doing so were enslaved to the trickster. This is also a good example of a similarity to stories of mortals challenging gods and failing in the attempt that exist in mythological stories in the real world. In conclusion, the point I'm trying to make is that the influence of mythology in the form of religion can be seen everywhere in games. Games where you control and expand a religion are a good example of mythology. In games, as mythology regards religion as a myth, there are examples all over as to similarities between in-game lore and... There are examples all over as to similarities between in-game lore and fictional culture and real-life myth and culture. I worded that one confusingly. The similarities are in Warhammer, as I have just shown, certain aspects of Star Wars. The list goes on and on. It's plain to see that religious myth impacts entertainment heavily. One final example I'll give is in the form of Civilization 6. Civilization 6 lets you found and control and expand the influence of all the major modern-day religions, or found your own made-up one, a mythology professor would argue, as opposed to... and expand that. I may not have gone into detail enough for some people in my presentation, but I'd like to think I have done a good job of highlighting the presence of myth in games and similarities in fictional properties like Warhammer 40k and real-life myth. This has been yet another mythology presentation by me. I hope you found it enjoyable, and that's about it for this presentation, I guess. Thank you for watching.